Hey YouTube, this is The Art of Prepping. Thanks for joining me today. Just want to talk about 3 simple ways to harvest protein in an emergency, especially if we're in the bush, in the wild, the forest, maybe it's a jungle. These are just some common ways to look for protein. After a few days, the body really starts to crave protein. Now, when you do consume protein, you do need water. Quite a bit more water than you would have if you were to try to digest carbohydrates. But nonetheless, if you have the water and you have the means to get the protein, you should do such. Anytime you can give more of the raw materials to your body, it definitely increases your chances of survival. So if you're out in the woods, where are you going to look for protein? Well, the first thing is that there's insects. Um, Now, these things are everywhere. Now, it depends on the time of the year, but like for where I live, of course, this depends on where you live. I mean, I have subscribers and viewers from all around the world. When I look at my demographics in my channel statistics, I am shocked about how many different people in different countries watch my channel. So I really can't sit here and tell you what you should do. You probably know better than what I do about what insects even live in your area. But for me, I have worms, I have like cockroaches, and of course, you may want to cook some of these depending on what kind of animal it is or creature, and grasshoppers. Now, those just right there, there's a lot more. I'm just saying those are kind of the highlight for my area. Those can give you some protein. Now, you'd have to consume quite a few of them to get what you probably need, but it would at least hold you off. So that's the first thing is to look on the ground, look in the ground, and look at like dead trees. Look at things that are kind of decomposing, trees that are standing up and down, especially old like stumps. There's all kinds of little critters in there. But just make sure you know which ones are not good for you either. Some of them could be poisonous. So, so we got those critters. We got insects, and those are probably one of the easiest to obtain. Um, Now, in terms of the next level, I would go is to find a game trail. I have several game trails actually on my property, and it's basically just a path that animals have been using for who knows how long. And they create a little path, and it's the path of least resistance. Just like humans would want to take a path of least resistance to get from point A to B, animals do too. When they do that, they use less energy. And number two, they're safer because there's less obstacles to injure themselves. So, when we're looking at the game path, these game trails and stuff can be a great point to seize opportunities for protein. And so you could actually put snares and traps on the game trail itself. You could go behind bushes or create a barrier, especially downwind, with a spear, firearm, or whatever it is legal in your area, or whatever things you have, and to obtain that protein. Or you could actually set up a perch in the trees to dispatch the game from above. So those are some options. There's others than that too. You could actually make, traps in terms of digging out pits, and the animal, walks over the pit falls in, gives way, and it collapses in, and you have an opportunity to net them, spear them, or maybe in the pit there's actually stakes coming up that would dispatch the animal right then and there. It just depends on how much energy you have, how much resources, and your skill level. So first is going to be insects, and number two, it's going to be game trail. And number three, of course, there's other options than just these three, but especially when we talk about like birds in the trees, like, nesting areas, that could be a fourth. But number three for me would be watering holes, or just areas that have water, waterways. So it could be streams, ponds, lakes, the edges of rivers, and so forth. So when we go to a place that has water, animals, are kind of like humans in a lot of ways. They need water to help digest their food and to stay hydrated. And so if you dispatch an animal at the edge of the waterway, that will give you a good opportunity to actually have water nearby to actually clean and help process the animal, especially if it's like a deer, for example. It's good to have water, to help rinse off your hands if it gets bloody, or when you're breaking the animal down. So basically, it's kind of convenient to have water by. But even with that being said, the waterway is also just kind of like a magnet. It attracts animals just because animals need water, and so it's just a good place to hang out anyways. And if all else fails, at least you have water that you could purify depending on your method that you know and have. And even if you don't get any kind of calories, at least you can stay hydrated. So that's good to have a waterway nearby. So hopefully this helps you a little bit. This is just a quick video, some extra little tips here. I got thinking about that because I was sitting here just thinking about some things in my life, and I'm like, wow. At one point there was like so many critters running around all around me. There was like dozens and dozens of birds everywhere making all this noise. And I'm like, oh my gosh, if I ever needed protein, it's all around me. Just in an emergency. I would never want to hurt any of my animals, but I'm just like, wow. Right now, just for some crazy reason, it's very quiet. Maybe since I've talked about protein, they all got scared. But at the moment, though, it was so amazing. I had like maybe a couple dozen birds. They were on the ground feeding, and they're up in the canopy. I had various ones flying overboard and over top of me, and then I had like squirrels, raccoons. I had some chipmunks and groundhogs over there and some foxes over. I mean, it was like a freaking ridiculous pantry of protein. And I'm like, oh my, that's a lot of protein running around. So yeah, so let me just know if there's any other ways that you would think of harvesting protein in an emergency if you just had to do it. I know that there are various types of plants and so forth. They have certain amino acids, with the exception of like soy. Basically, it's very difficult to find any plants that really have a complete protein built in. And so you typically have to piece together several different types of foods to make a complete protein. But having at least some amino acids to help create protein, a complete protein molecule, is better than nothing. So maybe you would do more foraging. You can definitely last a pretty long time by just foraging on plants and so forth if you had to do that. And of course, if you know what you're doing. A lot of people just don't understand how to harvest the plants, the roots and stems, how you can use them. Most of the root systems are pretty much the most nutritious element of most plants. A lot of people just don't understand that whole thing. So, that could definitely be maybe like number 5, is using plants. But in terms of protein, though, just already complete proteins, I think that you can't really go wrong with some of those that we just talked about. Hopefully this was helpful. You guys take care.